as you've progressed through various leadership roles, I guess at some point you have to dilute that to what your team is able to do, right? What's really sustainable. Have you had to dilute your personality or your professional persona in any other way as you've progressed?
You know, I would say I will change some of the things and how I communicate depending on who I am, but I wouldn't say that I ever dilute my personality. I feel like any time that I'm trying to, hold back who I am, it didn't do me any favors. So I'll share it as an example. I was 24 at the time to go speak on a panel. It was in Italy. The other speakers included the Prime Minister of Italy, the CEO of New York Times. We had Senator John McCain. I mean, that was the people that was on stage in addition to myself. And there was very few women speaking there. And I wore a bright pink business dress. And for me, it was like, I loved owning it. And do you know what? At that event, I met one person, very successful entrepreneur, who ended up becoming one of my investors. And I think if I didn't fully just own who I was and feel confident in the kind of value, because at the time, everybody else there had significant experience, but I also knew, even though I was only 24, I knew that there was value I was bringing to the crowd and topics that they weren't necessarily experts at, but I was. And I felt confident in that, and I felt really confident in embracing who I was.
That's amazing. Now, you're a tech CEO with an ME. Congratulations. How does being a natural storyteller, as you've shared today, you definitely are, and a media producer, influence the way that you communicate with employees?
That's another bet that I made that actually seemed like it wasn't such a great bet. I won an Emmy for the first TV show I ever produced.
Okay, tell us about it.
In some ways, I actually would say I'm not a great storyteller. It's taken a lot of practice, a lot of feedback, and even for that TV show, I was not the one that was creating the story. It was the director and the writer. For me, I was on the business side. So I always recognize where are my strengths and weaknesses, and I'm not going to go and disrupt where I don't have the expertise. So I really let the director and the creative folks fully own that creative storytelling side, and I was just bringing the business side. How to make sure we fully finance it well. How do we make sure that we get the right distribution and the right investors? So that's the part where I felt very confident in, and I didn't want to go and give my opinion on something that I wasn't the expert on. So with the show, actually, it was just recognizing a really strong team. Almost all the things that I built, it was less about the idea and that final product or that product that was presented at the time, but more about the people that I wanted to work with. All the companies I had started, from the biotech company to the digital signage software company to Blaze, I chose, that's the people I want to work with first. And of course we had a general idea, but I also know in business, with changing market dynamics, you have to be able to adjust very quickly. So I don't get married to that initial idea, that product, or even that story. It's rather, okay, do I believe this is a team that can execute? And so that director is the one I really believed in, that I felt he can execute. I worked with him on another project years before that TV show, and it never really got anywhere. It was a low budget film. I was new in LA, so I said, what am I going to do on during my free time on the weekends? I'm going to go volunteer for a movie director.
Okay.
So I literally met him at the screening of this movie that he made. I was invited by a friend, and I was blown away with how well he created a movie with a tiny, tiny independent budget. And so I went up to him afterwards and I said, I'm Nancy, I just moved to LA, I'm 2 years out of college, I'm building a tech company on the weekends. I would love to just help. And I didn't ask for any titles or anything. It was just, I just want to help you with whatever project you have next. It was this movie, and I helped go and raise money for it. I went and helped get some great actors that were part of it that otherwise wouldn't have known about the director or that project. And at the end of that, he was like, because of everything you've done, I actually want to give you co-producer title for that. I was like, thank you very much. And we had a great working relationship, great communication throughout that time. And we lightly stayed in touch in the years between that and then the TV show. And I joined in not on season 1 of the TV show, which I always feel like is kind of like that seed round for a startup or something. It's the early days. You see is season 1 going to work. I joined in a later season, but I had saw the cult following that show was having. I reached back out to him, and he said immediately, I'd love to have you as a co-producer of this. And I was grateful. We were deliberate in that we wanted to share the show with everybody else, and we wanted to win an Emmy. It was not an accident that we won an Emmy. We really did pursue that, and we had a goal. I had a goal, and we worked together to go and achieve it.
And the name of the show?
It's called The Bay. You can watch it on Amazon Prime.
There you go.
And pretty much any most popular streaming platforms.
There are other streaming platforms available. And what lessons have you learned about owning your own narrative with investors and your own professional image, Nanxi?
Yes, I try to stay true to myself. It's a bit of whenever I'm communicating with somebody, whether it's an investor or it's a customer or a team, I try to remind myself of what the context is that they have of myself or where they were coming from. And so I try to make sure my communication is effective. And so it's both staying true to who I am, what I want to communicate, but also making sure and reminding myself of the context they're from. So the communication that I have with investors and how I communicate with them is very different than one of my teammates. And it's very different than when I'm hanging out with friends. And so I do adjust, and I still stay true to myself, who I am, but that messaging, the content takes into account the context that we're in, the setting that we're in, and where they're coming from.
Good. Now, you were also involved with Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation. In the high-stakes world of venture capital and private equity, how do you have a genuine balance between wellness and looking after yourself and looking after your team with building a resilient, high-performing culture in the workplace? Yes,
one of the things that I've admired, some founders, they just work on their business 24/7, and that's all they do. I admire that. I am not like that. There are things where I want to do things, I want to learn other things. And so I love building my companies, and the things I do outside of building the company, actually I feel like make me a better executive, a better board member, a better founder. I'm building connections in other industries that when I meet somebody, I may or may not be able to, find at that moment something I can help them with or how they might help me, but rather it's just building the genuine connections because I love meeting people. And for me, I love supporting people. And so with that, I have, as you know, I've served on a bunch of nonprofit boards. I still serve on nonprofit boards. I love playing music. I recently hosted a classical music concert at my home, this recital, and I performed. I invited some of my friends to perform together. And those are things that I really feel like recharge myself to make me fully ready and present when I'm working on the business. And so I think all of that is to say, I try to recognize what brings me energy, what allows me to stay high energy. For some people, it means being able to have strict routine and just working on their business. For me, it's that I'm working on my business, but to find continuous ideas and to be able to work and optimize my skills, it's that I'm also dabbling or learning in other industries, interacting with people outside of my industry. And that, when I have lots of different industries, I'm learning from it and interacting, and it actually just makes me more productive. So I think it's recognizing for myself what makes me productive, but that's a different way of operating than maybe somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And pursuing the passion that we have as individuals makes us a better person professionally, I think. So let's talk a little bit about Exadel now. You are on our advisory board, which is amazing. How did your journey with us begin, and what part of Exadel's culture made you want to commit your expertise here with us?
Yes, first, Exadel really embodies one of the values I care about, which is excellence. And when I talked with all the people at Exadel, it was clear they do an excellent job. And Exadel provides excellent service to the clients with excellent outcomes. So I think that is really critical. And I enjoy working with a company that seeks the excellence, isn't trying to be mediocre, but rather they're looking for great talent, great people constantly, not settling to just be average. Now, how the journey started was, again, back to people.
Yeah.
So Julie from finance and Palmer also on the finance team, they were involved, they were leaders in the company that acquired my last company. And so that's how I met them.
Right.
And when they were putting together the advisory board, they said, hey, Nancy, you know, we had you in mind, and I'm so grateful that they thought of me for this opportunity, because it's been such a pleasure working with everyone at Exadel. Truly, I look at the backgrounds of all of the people, and it matches the excellence that they demonstrate in all of the interactions that I have, the conversations that they have with clients or potential clients I'm introducing to the team. And that gives me confidence in wanting to continue telling everyone that I meet in my network, here's why you want to work with Exadel, whether it's as a customer or a potential partner.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you. So I mentioned the launch of our new ERG, Employee Resource Group, the WE network for women at Exadel. And its mission is centered on visible leadership, connection, mentoring and coaching to help women grow. As a woman on our advisory board, what would you like to say to the women at Exadel and to those considering a tech career with us about the importance of an initiative like this?
I am so impressed that Exadel is so intentionally creating this community and this resource that is already head and shoulders better than so many other organizations, technology organizations out there. And I love that. And I think it is telling and a reflection of the leadership. I think this initiative wasn't possible if you didn't have the leaders saying, this is important to us. And we're not just going to talk about it. They're investing real resources, time, money into developing and creating a community of great women at Exadel. So I think that is really admirable. And I would say, embrace that community. My closest friends, the people that have helped me the most on the journey, are a community of female founders. They're my best friends. I brag about the bachelorette party I had, where at my bachelorette party is 10 different women, and it ranged from the chief of staff to the NFL commissioner, all the way to a 2-time PhD, built one of the largest private colleges, all the way to somebody who's built one of the largest makeup brands. That was my bachelorette group. That's my crew. Those are the people where we have this shared experience of creating a company, and at Exadel, it would be shared working environment. And I think accelerating the ability for us to do great work for the company comes from having a supportive community, having a supportive group of people that not only are you've got skin in the game in one another, right? Because in building a company, every person relies on the excellence and the ability for another team to deliver. And so when you can also build strong, truly, these strong support systems that are not just you're talking about it, but it exists, and there's investment in it, that's very powerful. So I hope people really embrace that, and the women here celebrate this.
Absolutely. And it's a very tangible thing when you have that network that you can reach out to. Globally, we're 30% women, which is great for a tech company.
Yes.
We've still got some way to go, but doing an initiative like Women at Exadel will definitely help with our talent attraction, retention, and just really empowering the women that we have in the organization today. So thank you for helping us launch it today.
It is my honor. It's such a pleasure.
And if tech organizations want to have real impact like we're having, rather than just symbolic action, what should they prioritize?
One of the things that's prioritizing is showing people real investment into the initiative. So it's not just saying we support women, but it's that we support women and we created a community, and we're creating a leadership series, or we're creating a video series to go and encourage community. It's showing that there are opportunities for leadership for women. I think it's demonstrating that it's not just people that are in your operations role, but it's in that operational role in a leadership position.
Yeah.
And people believing there is a pipeline to building that leadership.
And you mentioned our CFO. We've got a female CFO who's co-sponsoring this with our CEO, Michael. Our privacy officer is a woman. We've got a VP of engineering is a woman. Our head of consulting delivery is a woman. We've got lots of, I'm VP of talent, right? So we've got lots of women in leadership, and we want to be role models for the women at Exadel that are here with us today, and for the future women of Exadel too. So thank you for being involved in it.
I think Exadel is an example of what it looks like for an organization to go and support women in a technology company and support them well and authentically.
So if you had to write a term sheet to stick on the private equity theme for the next generation of women entering tech today, what's the one non-negotiable clause that every woman should have in her career?
I would ask for clear path and understanding if I wanted to seek the next level, to be promoted. What are the metrics that the organization's going to be looking for? And making it such that it's not just the qualitative, but there's some quantitative elements that I know I can go back to with data that is not biased. The numbers, I want the numbers to speak for itself in the great work that I'm doing.
So Nanxi, you once wrote about how a piano lesson helps you succeed in business. If you were to write a follow-up article today titled "What a Decade in Boardroom Taught Me About Leadership," what would be the central theme?
I think the theme is recognizing who to work with and collaborate with on certain issues or problems. What I recognize is in a boardroom, there are different stakeholders that come from a different perspective, and it's about how do I go and build a great relationship and solve for a certain problem? How do I create the best brain trust for tackling a certain strategy or for executing a certain strategy? And in everything I've done in business, it's the same thing, identifying the best people in my network, or maybe it's recognizing actually there isn't somebody in my direct network, I need to go seek out that resource. So it's being really thoughtful about the people that I'm working with and who to collaborate with on certain things. And certainly in the boardroom, you will, I think, do a lot more listening than sharing. And I think that's also very important, because I won't be able to go and identify who are the best people to work with something before, until I listen and understand what's the situation, gather all of the data, hear the perspective of the CEO or other people on the management team and what's happening, and then identifying, okay, what are the questions, the right questions to ask? And then a lot of things, the hard work and the discipline doesn't happen in a meeting. It happens outside of the meeting. The meeting is gathering information or maybe sharing, okay, here's the next step, but it's that discipline of then outside of the meeting, figuring out who the best person is to go and tackle this issue or solve for something.
Yeah. And just because they've been the right person in a previous scenario doesn't mean that they're going to be the right person for a new scenario or a new opportunity, right? You have to take each one as it comes.
Absolutely. And it's also getting people that are maybe outside of that department or have can provide a perspective that didn't exist. And a lot of times when we're at Blaze trying to evaluate something, I really like to get the data points from multiple different types of stakeholders. Yes, I've got the perspective of what the customer wants. Now I want the product team. Where does this fit into that roadmap? And then a salesperson that said, did other customers request this, or our potential prospects we're talking to, did they request this as well in making that decision?
Yeah. So we're approaching the end of our discussion today, and it's been fascinating. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Nanxi, is when all of this is over, when you're done, if you're ever done with the world of work, what's the one legacy that you want to leave that outlasts all the money, all the accolades and Emmys, all the successes? What will it be?
I want to be the person that people know they can go to achieve their greatest level of success. I want to be that person that supports anyone, whether it was that director to go win an Emmy or that team that wants to go and create the best product in a certain industry. I want to be a person that is a catalyst to supporting and helping them achieve it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. Last question from me is, do you have any favorite podcasts that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
I listen to all sorts of podcasts all the time. And depending on, I think it's more the episode that I hear. I'll hear somebody that's like, oh, this is a really interesting topic. But one that I've listened to a lot is the Tim Ferriss podcast. That podcast, he has interviewed just remarkable people. And Tim is an expert in interviewing people, just like you are, and asking great, thoughtful questions. And going beneath kind of the generic stuff, really going into that person's experience. And I think him and his team do a lot of research beforehand before they go and ask the questions to the podcast guest. And they're excellent. Really, you're hearing from health experts all the way to people that are on the military side, all the way to people that are founders, writers. And I get inspired every time I listen to an episode of that podcast.
I love it. I'll give it a shout. Thanks very much, Nanxi. Really appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
My pleasure.